Hey, I'm Maybe Burke, and you're watching Makeup for Lost Time. This is my series for trans women and other people who feel like they missed a few classes when it came to learning about makeup. So we're going step by step through a makeup routine, and today we're going to be talking about blush. And there's a lot of different ways you can approach blush, from color to finish and all things like that, so let's get started. Now, color is going to be a really unique choice when you're talking about blush. Some people want a blush that just looks like their natural flush. Some people like to use a color that's going to bring out the color of their eyes. And if you're like me, you like to just play around with different colors. If you want to play around, I recommend getting something like a blush palette. This is from Minty Makeup. This comes with 4 different shades that I can play around with, and these are definitely a little more on the bold side if you like having fun like that. But there are also palettes that have just like pinks and peaches and things like that. If you want to go for what your most natural blush would look like, literally pinch your cheeks and see what color your face turns. Use that as your reference point and use that as the color you're going for. You can literally do it standing in a Sephora, just pinch your cheeks and then find what swatches closest to that. And then when you're choosing the finish, it's really personal preference. Most powder blushes are going to give you a matte finish, but there's liquids and creams that can give you dewy finishes and satin finishes and things like that. So if you don't want your blush to interrupt any glow, you can go with a glowy blush. Now, we've talked about contour and we've talked about bronzer, but the reality is anytime we're putting color on our face, it is going to influence the way the shape of our face looks. And so you can play around with different places that you put blush that might enhance certain features. I'm gonna do 2 different styles, different colors, different placements on either side of my face, so you can see how different blush works. I don't have any contour or bronzer, I just have foundation and concealer, and obviously my eyes are done. You can pair blush with a contour or a bronzer, but I'm gonna just do blush today so we can see what it looks like alone. So I'm gonna start with this Minty Makeup palette because I love it. And when I'm using any type of a powder product, I'll pack it onto the brush, and then I'll just tap off a little bit of the excess so we don't have too much on the brush. Less is more. We've covered this when we went over eyeshadows and things like that. You can go in with a little bit and then add more if you need to along the way. So here, I'm gonna smile so that I can really see the part of my face that I'm gonna wanna emphasize with the blush. And I'm gonna concentrate this right where that hits. Right where my cheek pops out when I smile. And like I said, I'm just gonna tap in and go for a little bit more. And I'm saying I'm going to concentrate it there. You'll notice I'm tapping it in place, and then I start using lighter pressure and tapping around that to get a smooth and even blend out from there. And so there I have a little bit of blush right at the high point of the cheek when I smile. It's not all the way in the front on the apple of my cheek. It's up a little bit. That's where I've learned I really like placing my blush, when I'm just going for something soft like this. Now on the other side, I'm gonna go in with a cream. And I'm gonna take a brush. You know I love brushes, but you can take your finger with creams and liquids. You can go in with a sponge if you want to. I like to use a brush. And with this, I'm gonna go in a place that I actually don't like to put my blush, but it is a place that some people really swear by. And that's gonna be starting up by the temple. And you'll notice I'm doing the same thing. I'm tapping in place and then using lighter pressure to tap out from that. And so I'm going a little bit down to the cheekbone like I was going on the other side and up towards the forehead. And so here we have kind of a shadow on the perimeter of the face of some color there. And here we can really mimic what like bronzer and contour sometimes do for us. Now this is obviously a much more stylistic choice. It's a little bit more dramatic in color and placement. Now this side is obviously working its way up towards the forehead, and I don't want to forget that on this side. And so with that same blush that I used, the powder, I'm also just going to take it very lightly onto my forehead. Because I find that if there's just color on my cheek and that color doesn't show up elsewhere on my face, it looks far less natural. And so this is just a way to make things a little bit more cohesive. You can also use powder blushes to blend out eyeshadow, even as eyeshadow. You can use cream and liquid ones as lip products. There's so many ways that you can incorporate blush into your look, even if it's not just directly on your cheeks. And of course, if we want long wear, we can always layer a powder over a cream to make it last a little longer. For a lot of people, blush might be the first thing that comes off of their makeup. And so if you want it to last longer, setting that cream blush with a powder is the way to go. Sometimes I'll come down to the sides of the chin as well with that same color, but really lightly with just what's left over on the brush. And then sometimes some people do a little pass along the nose as well. Different people use different placement for the nose as well. I like to go right in the middle of the bridge before the end of my nose, if I'm gonna do it on my nose at all. But especially if we're just like looking like a little natural flush, often our noses will get a little rosy if our cheeks are too. So it could be helpful for cohesion and looking a little more natural. And that can be a full face once you just have some blush on. We don't need to pair it with bronzer and contour. We can if we want to. I can go from here, powder where I'm a little shiny, and I'll be set for the day. So I encourage you to play around with some blush if you want to try some new colors or if you want to try some different placements. And check back here for more tips as we make up for lost time.